Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that don't make sense on paper, but makes all the sense in the world when you live in it. If he loves you, he will ignore you. Yeah, I said it. That man will straight up act like you don't exist some days. And you'll be sitting there confused, hurt, wondering what you did wrong. But let me break it down for you. A man's silence often speaks louder than his words. He's wrestling with feelings he doesn't know how to express. That's the part nobody wants to talk about. Everybody wants to think love looks like fireworks, long talks, and sweet texts all day. But for a man, especially one who's never had a safe space to unpack his emotions, love can hit like a tidal wave. And when it does, it doesn't come out in poetry. It shows up in silence, in withdrawal, in long pauses, where he's figuring out what in the world just happened to his heart. See, men are taught from the time they're little boys to keep it together. Don't cry. Don't show weakness. Don't say too much. And so what happens is they grow up learning how to lock up their feelings in a box, shove it somewhere in the back of their mind, and move on. But when love walks in, when a real woman with warmth, depth, and soul walks into his life, he can't use those old rules no more. That box starts shaking, that box starts cracking, and he doesn't have the tools to deal with the flood of emotion rushing out. So what does he do? He shuts down, he disappears. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much and doesn't know what to do with it. You ever seen a man fall quiet when something really matters to him? That's not confusion, that's pressure. He knows you're not just another person. You're not another text, another conversation, another casual connection. You're something different, something that threatens to pull things out of him that he's never shared with anyone, something that touches parts of him that even he hasn't dared to explore. When a man loves you, and I mean really loves you, he goes into a kind of emotional lockdown. It's not rejection, it's reaction. He's trying to hold on to control to maintain some sort of balance because the thought of falling too deep too fast scares the hell out of him. That silences him in battle with his ego, with his wounds, with the version of himself he's always been and the man he knows he has to become to love you the right way. He can't articulate it. He can't sit you down and say, I love you so much it scares me and I don't want to ruin this. No, he just pulls back. He becomes distant. He might even act cold, short, detached, but inside, he's anything but calm. Inside, he's panicking. He's analyzing every word he said to you, every moment you shared, every glance you gave him that made his heart beat just a little too fast. And the wild part, he doesn't even realize he's doing it half the time. He's just reacting like muscle memory. Like someone who's used to being let down and doesn't want to admit he finally met someone he could fall for. So instead of leaning in, he leans out. Instead of stepping up, he steps away. That silence? That's not peace. It's chaos. It's confusion. It's a grown man staring love in the face and trying to make sense of why. It terrifies him more than losing a job, more than a fight, more than anything else he's ever faced. He wants to call you, he wants to explain, but his pride, his conditioning, that little voice in his head that says, don't get too soft, keeps his phone in his pocket and his heart on lockdown. And you're left wondering if he even cared at all. But make no mistake, he did, he does. You shook something in him. You made him question himself, his plans, his path. That silence is loud with everything he doesn't know how to say. Love for a man can trigger fear of vulnerability, making him withdraw to protect himself. See, most men don't grow up in spaces where vulnerability is welcome. They grow up being told to be strong, to hold it in, to be the rock. That word, vulnerability, It sounds like weakness to a man who's been trained to see emotion as a threat. So when love shows up, real love, it challenges everything he's been taught. It knocks on the door of his heart and asks to come in. But letting it in means letting his guard down. And for a man who spent his whole life guarding himself, that ain't easy. When a man starts to love a woman, I mean deeply love her, something strange starts to happen inside him. It's like he's standing on the edge of a cliff and love is telling him to jump with no parachute. That kind of emotional exposure, that's terrifying because now he's not in control. Now his emotions are involved, and that means he can get hurt. And for a man who has seen hurt, maybe from his childhood, maybe from a failed relationship, maybe from life, he's not quick to gamble his heart again. So instead of stepping into love with open arms, he starts pulling back, he shuts down, he withdraws, not because he doesn't feel anything, but because he feels too much. The fear of vulnerability is one of the most powerful forces a man can face. Vulnerability says, show her your wounds, show her your fears, show her your uncertainty. But the man in him, the one who's been taught to be tough, he says, no, hide it. She doesn't need to see that. Stay in control. And so he starts to build walls. He goes quiet. He avoids emotional conversations. He makes himself busy, all because the love he feels for you makes him feel seen. And being seen, really seen, is scary when you've spent years wearing a mask. And here's what most people don't understand. When a man feels safe, he talks. When he feels judged, he shuts down. So if he's withdrawing, if he's ignoring, it might be because your presence has stirred something in him that he doesn't know how to deal with. You didn't do anything wrong. You just reached a part of him that nobody else ever reached before. And now that it's been touched, he doesn't know what to do with it. He's not trying to hurt you. He's trying to protect himself. Imagine carrying years of unspoken pain, years of disappointments, and then meeting someone who actually sees you. Not just the version of you that you show to the world, but the real you. That level of intimacy feels like danger to a man who's never known comfort and closeness. It's not that he doesn't love you. It's that the love you offer makes him feel exposed. It makes him realize that the armor he's been wearing all his life doesn't fit anymore. But taking it off, that's the scariest thing he's ever had to consider. He starts asking himself questions. What if I mess this up? What if I give her everything and she leaves? What if she finds out who I really am and decides I'm not enough? Those questions don't come from arrogance. They come from fear. And fear makes a man pull away from the very thing he wants most. He's not ghosting you because he doesn't care. He's retreating because caring this much is foreign territory. He's used to being in control of his emotions, and now he feels like his emotions are in control of him. So instead of leaning into the love, he leans into silence. Instead of opening up, he closes off. It's not because the love isn't real. It's because the love is too real. And that kind of love, the kind that breaks through all his defenses, makes him feel like he's walking around without armor in a world that's always told him to stay protected. Ignoring you might be his way of processing, not rejection, because love shakes up everything he thought he had figured out. Men often walk through life with a kind of silent blueprint. They've got their plans, their timelines, their emotional systems all mapped out. They're taught to move with purpose, to stay focused, to keep their emotions in check. And then suddenly, someone comes along, someone who doesn't fit into the blueprint but feels like home, and everything starts to shift. When love enters the picture, it doesn't ask for permission. It barges in rearranges everything, and demands that he reconsider who he is, what he wants, and how he lives. See, people think ignoring someone is always about disinterest, but that's not always true. Sometimes ignoring is about overwhelm. He's not ignoring you to hurt you. He's ignoring you because your presence brought up questions he's not ready to answer. Questions like, am I ready to be this kind of man? Can I actually be emotionally present for someone like her? Am I still holding on to my past? These questions don't come gently. They crash into his mind like waves, and the only way he knows how to stay afloat is to go quiet. For a lot of men, processing doesn't look like talking it out. It doesn't look like journaling or venting to friends. It looks like distance. It looks like silence. It looks like pulling away to figure things out internally. When he ignores you, it doesn't mean you're not on his mind. It usually means you're all over his mind, and he doesn't know how to handle that level of emotional intensity. He's trying to recalibrate, trying to understand why you've got such a grip on his heart when he swore he had his emotions under control. Love for a man who has kept things compartmentalized is disruptive. It forces him to look at parts of himself he's avoided. It exposes his doubts, his fears, his flaws, and most of all, it shatters the illusion that he can stay emotionally detached and still be okay. He might have convinced himself he didn't need deep connection. He might have thought he had everything he needed, his space, his work, his routine, but then you came in and made him feel something he hasn't felt in a long time, or maybe ever. That kind of awakening isn't smooth. It's not graceful. It's confusing, chaotic, and at times paralyzing. He might have told himself that he was ready for love, but readiness in theory and readiness in practice are two different things. When love shows up in the form of a real woman with depth, emotion, and vision, it holds up a mirror to his soul. He starts to see where he's still broken. He starts to feel the weight of his past mistakes. He realizes that loving you isn't just about showing up on the good days, it's about confronting himself on the hard day. That's a lot to take in, especially for someone who's been emotionally self-reliant for so long. Ignoring you becomes a defense mechanism, not because he wants to lose you, but because he's terrified of disappointing you. He's afraid of stepping into something he can't fully understand. Love strips away his emotional armor, and in that moment, he feels exposed. So instead of saying, I need a moment to process this, he goes silent. He disappears into his thoughts. He puts distance between you and him, not to forget you, but to figure out how to move forward without messing everything up. There's a storm going on inside him that he doesn't know how to explain. The silence, the space, the absence, that's him in survival mode. That's him buying time to organize the emotional chaos that love just dropped on his doorstep. He doesn't want to be the man who hurts you, but right now, he's not sure how to be the man who deserves you either. He's not rejecting you, he's just caught in the middle of a battle between his heart and his fear. Love has forced him to rewrite the script he's been living by, and that process is noisy, messy, and deeply internal.